Hey y'all, so we are live again, another great Live at 5 session. And today is a really cool episode. It's on raising backyard chickens and raising rabbits. And we have a super cool guest on today, Anna Timmerman. She's been on before. She's the horticulture agent down in New Orleans, but she actually raises backyard chickens and rabbits. So I wanted to bring her back on. We've had a lot of questions about this, so thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Yeah. Can you tell us about your background with chickens and rabbits and everything?
Yeah, I joined 4-H when I was 6 years old in Michigan. Actually, all of our siblings did too. And we started with rabbits and chickens because they're such a small, easy livestock project. And we would go to the county fairs, we would go to the state fair, and I kind of stuck with it. I'm in my 30s now, and I've lived in 2 major cities, and I still keep backyard chickens and rabbits.
That is so cool. Yeah, cool. So it's up to you what you want to start with. Someone's saying the video doesn't look good. Hang on, let me check if the video's working. Here, I'm gonna minimize myself, Anna, so you have the full screen.
Okay, sounds good.
That way we can roll with it. And everyone, feel free to ask your questions as we go along. Anna's our expert on this. She will take the questions, but yeah, if you want to start with whatever you want to start with, you go for it.
Okay. Yeah, we're in my house. I do apologize because the Wi-Fi doesn't reach the backyard. But I have 3 small chicken coops back there, and I have about 35 rabbit hutches, which is a pretty decent size rabbitry. But we're getting a lot of calls about folks who maybe picked up some baby chicks at the feed store this spring as they're shopping for other things. So it seems like people are interested in raising eggs at home, which is great. And I actually even have a meat chicken here that I can show you all. But there are a lot of different kinds of chickens. Most of what you're going to get at the feed store falls into 3 categories, though. They're going to be either laying hens, bantams, and I have a bantam I can show you guys in a second, and meat breeds like this Cornish cross. So usually they're labeled, but what we're finding is sometimes they're mixed up. So it's good to know what to look for. A lot of the hatcheries online have really good catalogs online too, with pictures of what the different kinds of chicks look like. So I would just encourage people to start by doing their homework if this is something they're thinking about doing.
Awesome. Can you share why you have a meat chicken?
Yeah, actually, somebody let their small child pick out the baby chicks this spring at the feed store, and unfortunately the chicks were all mixed up, and meat chickens won't ever lay productive eggs. This is probably, believe it or not, a 4-week-old broiler cross. And what it is, it's a natural hybrid between a Cornish and a White Rook. And this is what you buy in the grocery store. And you do not want this in your backyard. So do your homework. Unless you live in the country and you're planning on butchering these yourself, do not get these from the feed store.
Oh, thank you.
That's why he's here. And it's crazy. This is a 4-week-old bird when, most of my 4-week-old birds of the heavy breeds are about this big and maybe that big.
Wow.
So they're bred to grow fast. All they do is eat and poop, and they're gross. But that's what you get at the grocery store. So I thought it would be good to show people, unless you're planning on raising your own meat, and make sure you check with your parish and your town laws. Here, it's not allowed to process your own, but fortunately I have friends on the North Shore who know what to do.
So, that's awesome.
Yeah, so just be buyer beware on that. But they do make a fantastic, home source of meat if that's something that folks are interested in. You can get them for about $2 a chick usually, and they're done, and they're about 5 to 6 pounds in 8 weeks or less.
Wow. Okay, yeah. That's quick. I didn't know that.
Crazy. Yeah. So yeah, be careful what you buy.
So when it comes to raising your own chickens, egg laying hens, how hard is that? Because we get a lot of questions on is it really tough to raise them, and can I raise them in my neighborhood? Is that legal?
It's going to be different between each parish and each municipality. So it's good to check in. All the codes for that are listed online is what I found, because I'm working 5 parishes and it's different in every community. For example, in Orleans Parish, there's no cap on the number of hens you can have, but you're not allowed to keep roosters. So that's our number one rule about poultry. Even though we have feral chickens in this neighborhood, I am not allowed to keep a rooster. So what I have is a bunch of these egg-laying hens. This is a Rhode Island Red. That's more what people would want, and it's very easy to keep these. They're productive for about 2.5, 3 years. They're going to lay eggs, and have a plan for them after that, because they do live a long time. So either retire them or, find somewhere to send them, like a retirement farm or something like that. But this is what people typically have when they think of backyard chickens, is something like these.
Okay. Heather was asking, can rabbits and the chickens live together in a coop?
No, you definitely want to keep your rabbits up off the ground. And there's a few different reasons for that. They don't roost like a chicken. Chickens sleep up on a roost. I have actually got, I think, 2 of them now that are up 5 feet off the ground, and that protects them from predators. You think about it, a rabbit is a prey animal, and it's also going to be susceptible to getting coccidiosis from interacting with chicken manure. So you want to keep them separate in separate housing. That's really best. I've seen where people do it, but it's really asking for a lot of health problems.
Fair enough. So when you start out, like, how many chickens do you recommend, and like where do you keep them? Like, what type of chicken coop should they build?
Yeah, for the average family, I think the recommendation was, I'll put you over here. I think the recommendation was 2 hens per person back in like the Victory Garden times. You can count on a young hen laying an egg a day, but the older they get, they'll still lay, but they might not lay every day. The time between each egg kind of increases. So you can kind of gauge it that way. For a family of 4, having 5 hens, 6 hens is perfect. If you're a single person, having a couple is perfect. You never want to keep them alone, though. They are a social creature. They live in flocks. So you always want to have at least 2 chickens. And your coop can really be as elaborate as you want it to be. There's actually whole websites dedicated to fancy chicken coop building. There's also a lot of pre-made chicken coop kits that I've seen at the feed stores, and Walmart even carries them. You can order them online, and they put together really easy with just a screwdriver. But you do want to make sure whatever coop you get or you build is extremely predator proof and is capable of keeping things like coyotes, raccoons, and opossums out. Even in an urban area, we have all 3 of those. So
yeah, I'm not surprised.
You want to build your fences really strong.
What do you use?
I use a combo of things. I have 2 handmade coops that are made out of galvanized fence wire. You don't want to use poultry netting or hardware cloth because a lot of things can tear right through that. And then the other one is a kit that I removed the hardware cloth and I replaced with galvanized fence wire. And that's worked out pretty great for me. I have my flock split into 3 because I'm raising chicks for other people. And I wish we could walk out there because there's some hatching today.
I know. Yeah. I'm really bummed about that.
Yeah, but there's some really good chicken coop building plans online for just about any size flocks. So figure out how many hens you want to keep and then do some research, and you can probably find something within your budget.
We have a couple questions on. Bruce is asking, when a hen starts setting, is there a way to keep them off the egg laying boxes?
Yeah, I actually have one doing that right now. It seems like certain breeds tend to go broody or start to sit like that this time of year more than others. I have trouble with my Old English games and my Buff Orpingtons. They seem to always want to sit. Best thing you can do is collect your eggs as many times a day as possible. It's not always possible. And then you can actually break that broody, they say, by keeping her in her own cage kind of off to herself for a while, and remove those eggs more frequently if you've got a larger flock. I usually kick them out of the nest at sundown because they will try to stay in there overnight, and I'll force them to go in the coop and roost. So there's some techniques you can use. I find that they tend to give up after about 3 to 4 weeks, but it is annoying, especially when you're counting on those eggs because they do stop after a while.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
We have another question. How do you know if your chicken eggs are good to eat?
Okay. Well, if you're collecting them daily, they'll be just fine. If they have any cracks in them, you should not eat them because, you think about a chicken coop, chickens poop in their coop too. Keeping your nest boxes clean is really important. I like to put fresh hay in mine every week. It's just a habit that I have. Your chicken eggs, actually, if they're from your own chickens, they're going to keep a lot longer without refrigeration than any of them from the store, especially if they're unwashed. Because chicken eggs have what's called a bloom on the outside, and that's a natural sort of barrier to any kind of bacteria like salmonella getting into those eggs. So if you actually don't wash your eggs until you're ready to use them, they last a lot longer and you're less likely to get a bad egg. There is a float test. If you're wondering about older eggs, like maybe your hens hid them from somebody. Yep, I see Noah's asking about the float test. It does work. So what you do is you have a jar of cold water, and if it sinks, it's good, and if it floats, it's bad. So that's a good way to do it because that egg, if it's bad, is going to rot and have a lot of gas in it.
Makes sense. Okay. Heather's asking what's the best breed of chicken to have? I guess what's your recommendation?
For first timers, I definitely recommend the heavy breeds. So poultry are classified by heavy and light breeds and then bantams. Rhode Island Reds are a heavy breed. The ones that I find are the most friendly are usually Buff Orpingtons. I like Barred Rocks, Rhode Island Reds. I have some Andalusians that are pretty friendly. And if you're looking for a smaller chicken, that's very kid friendly. Silkies are really, really easy to handle. So
those are so pretty. Those are cool. Okay.
They're really neat. Yeah, I don't have any right now, but that's one of my favorite breeds.
That's so neat. Could you, I guess, how many, do you have to bring your chickens to the vet ever?
We do have a chicken vet here in town, and he's actually the same as the rabbit vet. We have Dr. Rich out in Metairie. But if you keep their coops keep your coops clean, keep predators out, you shouldn't have that many problems. There are some diseases that chickens get. Newcastle is going around in California right now. That's a pretty bad one. You can worm them twice a year. I use pumpkin seeds. There's a product made out of pumpkin seeds for that. But they should have very few problems in a backyard setting as long as you keep things sanitary and secure. Those are the two biggies.
Okay.
So don't let manure build up. Don't let flies accumulate, especially if you're in a neighborhood setting. Be a good neighbor. Keep things very clean.
Do you ever let your chickens like roam the yard, or like how does that work?
I do, and I actually had to fence them out of my gardens. They do come home at night, and I live near 4 abandoned lots. I'm in the 9th ward, so there's a lot of empty lots, and they do go out and pick bugs, and they come right back.
That's so cool. Okay. Anything else you want to add on the chicken side of things? Like what else should anyone know just getting into it?
Just do your homework. If you can, there's a lot of good local Facebook groups, actually. So there's probably some experienced poultry breeders near you. Louisiana is a state that people keep a lot of poultry. So you can definitely learn from your neighbors, see who's raising them locally. And you can either buy chicks online, although the hatcheries are pretty backed up. Check your feed store. There's local breeders you can usually find online. And then you can actually hatch your own in an incubator too. So you've got some options.
Oh, can you show us your incubator?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot. I've got some quail in there. Cool. They're going to hatch in a couple of days. But this is just a basic, it's called a still air incubator. And this is a kit you can get at Tractor Supply or anywhere, really. And it's just a styrofoam box with a thermostat. And then I have an automatic egg turner in mine. So I don't have to worry about turning them by hand.
Wow.
So those are some Japanese quail that I'll hatch out in a couple of days.
Oh, that is so neat. Okay.
Yeah.
We're getting a question about what's the best feed for the chickens?
So there's different kinds of feed. I'm glad somebody asked that because I almost forgot. When they're first born to the time that they're fully feathered out and got some size to them, so maybe about 8 to 9 weeks, you want to be feeding them chick starter. And that's a feed product that's a little bit higher protein. And they need that because they're growing very quickly and they're putting a lot of feathers on. So they need that extra protein to do it correctly and build good bone structure, good muscle structure. So use chick starter. And then once they're fully feathered and they're sort of in their teenager years, you can switch them to a layer. There is an intermediate protein level called grower, but that's really for more like your meat bird up here. And that maintains a higher level of protein. Layered feed comes in crumbles and pellets. The pellets are a little less waste, so that's a good option. You can get organic, inorganic, and then I also feed mine a product called scratch grain. And that what that is it's whole kernels of corn and sunflower seeds and sorghum, and it's just a treat basically. But it gives them something to pick at. So that's usually what you'll see at the feed store is layer, grower, starter, and scratch grains. And the starter comes in medicated and unmedicated. So you can make that decision for yourself. Usually the medicated stuff is good if you're raising them outdoors and not in some sort of, bin. That just protects them a little bit from some different diseases.
Cool. Thank you. They also said thank you for your answers on that. Let's see, we've got another one. What's your typical daily routine that you do for your chickens?
Well, I'm up with the chickens, so to speak. So they're shut in the coop at night, and then I let them out typically around 6:30, and they're ready by then. And then I fill their waters. I have a couple of 5-gallon water containers that last them all day. I just fill them in the morning, and I feed them in the morning too. You don't want to leave a lot of grain out overnight because that can attract rats and mice. So it's always good to kind of figure out exactly how much your girls will eat. Feed them that first thing in the morning, and they should be just about done with it by the time the sun goes down. They do most of their eating in the morning, actually. So I'll feed them. I actually have a little compost bucket next to my kitchen sink, and we throw our vegetable scraps and eggshells in there. So I give them that in the morning too. And then I shut them in again at night, which is usually about the time I'm feeding my rabbits in the early evening. They'll actually go back in their coops on their own and roost. And that's when I collect my eggs too.
Oh, cool. Okay. How much feed per chicken?
It's going to vary a lot on the breed. Generally mine, because they're getting so much of the food scraps, and my neighbors save the food scraps too, and I put eggs on their porch as a thank you. They're getting maybe per hen, maybe a half a cup of feed is all, and that's scratch and layer combined. So they're pretty efficient. You're fine. They're pretty efficient, and they're a good way to use your kitchen scraps for sure, because they'll turn just about anything into eggs.
Would you consider, this is a question for me, would you consider them to be pricey animals to raise, or relatively cost effective?
They can be as expensive as you want them to be. There's some fancy breeds where a pair of them will cost several $100s, all the way to your $3 feed store chick. I'm going through a $14 bag of feed maybe every 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's not bad at all.
It's not bad, no.
Paul is asking, her hens are 4 years old, but they stopped laying. Are they too old to lay?
They're too old to lay. Yeah. A lot of times in a commercial setting, they'll be turned into pet food or Campbell's chicken noodle soup by then. You can get a new flock and kind of transition them, but it's better to kind of either let them live their life. There's a bunch of schools that thought about how to do this. Let them kind of retire, so to speak, and get a second flock going, different coop. You can sometimes find people that want to take them for pet food, or they're really tough when they're that old if you want to eat them yourself, but you can pressure can them. And that's what we used to do on the farm. My mom would pressure can her old hens, which makes them tender. And then she would can them in mason jars, and it was ready to go chicken broth with the meat in it. So, you do want to, when you're raising any animal, respect them, respect their life. It doesn't matter if you're vegetarian or not. I eat meat, but you do want to make sure that you're doing right by that animal. And I think that stands for anyone that's raising animals.
200%. Yeah, good words. Can you talk about rabbits a little bit? We want to see your rabbit.
I'll grab a couple out here.
And you do competitions with the rabbits, correct?
Yeah, it's something I started as a 4-H project, but there is rabbit shows in normal times in every state, and they're for adults and children. So if you have a 4-H member and they want to maybe get a little more competitive, there are shows all over. In Louisiana, they're typically at Alexandria at the EVAC Center, where we have a they're on campus even sometimes, which is cool. But yeah, there's a lot of families raising rabbits for meat, for wool, because there's Angora breeds and you can actually shear them like sheep, believe it or not.
Cool.
And then I have more of like a fancy breed. This is one of the breeds that I raised as a 4-H member, called a dwarf Oto, and they're only 3 pounds.
Oh, they're so cute.
So they're cute, but from a competition standpoint, they're really, really hard because they're a marked breed and they have to be just perfect. They're pure white with black around their eye, and they have to have stubby ears. There's a point system for chickens, for any poultry, and for rabbits called Standards of Perfection. So if you want to get into competing, on some of these levels beyond maybe the parish fair, I would encourage people to join the breeders associations, like the Rabbit Breeders Association, and get those standards and learn how to read those standards, because it will cover everything to how much the animal needs to weigh, how long their ears can be, if there can have any stray spots, everything. And that's what the judges use to place their classes. So if people are doing that at a parish level, it's the same.
That is super cool. So yeah. How would someone go about raising rabbits? Is that difficult?
It's pretty easy. There's some things to consider though in the South, especially if you start researching. It gets hot here, and rabbits have fur. They need a location in the shade for their hutches. They need good airflow constantly. A lot of folks will raise them in barns with fans or even air conditioning them. I just have mine in open wire hutches with roofs that overhang quite a bit, and they're under some shade trees in my backyard, and that works great. They're up off the ground about 3 feet, and I have compost bins right underneath that collects all their manure, which is great in a garden, by the way. It's an added benefit. And rabbits, when you have a lot of them, should probably be raised on a wire floor. There's a lot of good research about that. And it's a material almost like this, but a little smaller weave. And what that is it allows the airflow to be maintained. It's a lot cooler for the rabbits. They don't want to be laying around in a bed of straw all summer long. In the wintertime, I do add straw to my hutches to keep them a little warmer, but they do just fine outdoors here. Especially, if you have a lot of them, they do shed. You don't want them in your house. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Do you use the chicken manure too for compost and everything?
Yep, it all gets composted, and chickens are actually excellent at flipping your compost pile for you. So I actually let them do their work. Underneath my rabbit hutches, I add a lot of arborist trash, like ground up wood material, all their old hay and straw and bedding. It all falls under there. The chickens till it and stir it, and it breaks down in about a month. So that's what I'm using in my gardens.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Okay. How many rabbits do you have? Heather's asking.
Well, right now I am getting ready for what was going to be my spring sale, where I sell to 4-H kids all over the country, but all the shows got canceled. So I have kind of a lot right now. I have 52 as of today. So yeah, I'm connecting with some 4-H families locally and into Mississippi. There is a rabbit virus going around too. Rabbit hemorrhaging respiratory disease. It's all through the Southwest, and it's got as close as Austin, Texas here, but it's basically Ebola for rabbits.
Oh.
And we don't have a vaccine in this country. So people are not transporting rabbits, which is good to slow the spread. It's wiping out wild rabbit populations too. But luckily, it's something that they've already dealt with in Europe, and there is vaccine available. You just have to import it. So on top of all the people virus stuff going on, there's also a rabbit virus that's kind of put a hold on shows and on selling rabbits. So, I'm just kind of maintaining my herd in the meantime. We've got plenty of garden produce. That's sort of the cycle, is their poop goes on my garden and then they get to eat out of my garden.
So what do you feed them in a day? Like, what's your typical day with a rabbit?
So they get free choice grass hay. Down here we grow a lot of Bahia and Bermuda grass. So whatever I can get that looks good and green, they get free choice hay all day long. They also get a rabbit pellet. It's a 16% protein alfalfa based pellet that you can get at the feed store. And a rabbit this size gets a quarter cup a day. That's all they need. And then they get a big handful of whatever veggies I've got going. So this week they've eaten green beans. They just got a bunch of carrot tops that I harvested at the botanical garden. Kale, I've got arugula going, and sweet potato leaves. In the summertime, I grow a lot of sweet potato leaves for them.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do they require a lot of trips to the vet, or like how do rabbits work?
They're pretty hardy, actually, and it's hard to find vets that are experienced in rabbits because they and chickens are considered exotic animals at a lot of places. Yeah. So luckily, we do have somebody here locally who will see rabbits, and they're fantastic. So you might have to find somebody and travel a bit, but in general, they're pretty easy to raise. Same thing, you want to keep them clean. The number one best thing you can do for rabbits is good airflow, followed by number 2, which is clean water at all times. So I've got an automatic water system out there, and they have cool, clean water all the time. And that really keeps them healthy. They don't get a lot of issues beyond that. Sometimes I'll wean a litter and they'll get what's called enteritis, where they get almost a diarrhea. But it's easy to fix. You just stop feeding them pellets and only feed them hay for a while. They do get injured occasionally, but their bones are really hard to set, so they usually don't recommend, getting casts for them and stuff like that. In the South, they get ear mites a lot. They don't get fleas, but they get mites actually in their ears, but that's easy to fix too. You just use a horse worming paste, and that's usually something you can get from your vet or from your Tractor Supply or something like that. So other than that, I really haven't had any issues with them. But it is a little hard to find a rabbit vet, unfortunately.
Man, I didn't know it was so difficult. Okay. Yeah. I wish we could see like your houses and everything. I know the Wi-Fi is bad, but isn't some videos coming out with your rabbits and things like that?
Yeah, Chris Dunaway came out and filmed last week, and I think Randy's working on that. So y'all will get to see my setup.
Good. When that comes out, guys, I'm going to put it on the Ag Center Facebook page, so you'll be able to view it in high definition. And I promise, it's Wi-Fi. What can you do?
Yeah, for sure.
But other than that, I mean, thank you for doing this for us and walking everybody through the steps, because I think, especially with the chickens, I think everyone's interested right now. And I think both would be great, like you said, for 4-H.
Yep. Very good place to start for 4-H. Although my mom will tell you this, it's a gateway, because by the end of high school, all of us were showing cattle and horses too. So it starts small.
That's awesome. I love that.
I'll run with it. So it's a great thing to do as a family. Kids can take care of chickens, no problem. You just set up a routine, and animal husbandry is a skill that I think everyone should learn.
That is super cool. Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And I want everybody, please stay safe out there. And from your end, can you tell everybody if Extension is going back to the office? How is that working?
It's kind of parish by parish, but the thinking is if we can work remotely, we need to keep working remotely, and the public are not allowed in the offices. So we can go into our offices with masks to retrieve items, but we are still working from home. And I think most of the folks that we interact with down here figured out they can email or call or text or Facebook. So
yes,
they're still getting through. Even though our physical office is closed, we are still working full time. So.
Good. And that's what I wanted everyone to know is still email your agents right now. It's kind of in and out in the office, like Anna's saying. So just, make sure to get them in.
Yeah, and most of the offices are not allowing the public in, so just send us a picture. It's that easy.
Okay, fair enough. Well, thank you again, Anna.
Thank you.
And guys, next Monday will be our next Lab at 5, and we're going to do another Lab at 5 with Michael Polazola, and he is going to talk about unique plants from his garden. That will be really cool, so you can tune in for. Michael's got some really neat stuff. I'm pretty excited. So y'all stay safe out there, and get a chicken and a bunny because they're cool.
Get 2 chickens.
2. Sorry, not just 1. You told us that. I apologize. All right, y'all. Stay safe.